build it, you demolish it. The legendary Home Wrecker Burrito. Come build yours today with 20+ fresh ingredients.
First online order, 10% off. Promo code ONLINE.
And it is another Thursday night here in Moe's Canyon Village in Raleigh. Zach Solai alongside the man of the half hour, the man behind the boards, the man behind the mustache, and the man with apparently no better plans on a Thursday night, head coach Mike Gazzillo. Coach, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you.
So, Coach, I got to be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed because it is the winter, but on this last road trip, you had some fall attire. Now, what are you going to change with your coaching staff concerning your suits and your ties? Because it's very important to look at behind the bench.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't given it that much thought that you have. You know, whatever kind of is needs the least ironing and is ready to go is what comes out of the closet. So
that's awesome, Coach. So this is the first time that we've been able to sit down and talk since you guys clinched an ACCHL tournament spot back in November against the UNC Chapel Hill Tar Heels, a 5-3 dominant win, and it was a great game. And so going into this ACCHL tournament, coming back from the break, what's sort of been, I guess, the motivation for this team and your message to the team heading into February?
I mean, we knew that we pretty much had established a spot in the tournament, but you know, we want a little bit more than that, right? So coming in first in the division is still something that we can attain, and so that'd be good. It gives us a minimum number 3 seed. I know that earlier when we got back second semester, there was a possibility of a number 1 seed. I don't know how all the other teams winning and losing affect that. I could really only concern myself with how we do, and if we do the most that we can, then, you know, honestly, the chips will just fall with MA, and it is what it is.
So the ACCHL tournament is some of the last games of the season, but more importantly, it's some of the last games for critical members of this team, such as Luis Jimenez, Will Bieberdorf, Will Troll, and even John Kochlenberg. Speak on their play and how important these last few games are going to be for these critical seniors towards the play of this team.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to rely on their leadership. There's no question about that. I mean, you know, they all, whether they don't talk about it, but I'm sure they all realize the college career is coming to an end, and I don't think it's anything anyone was looking forward to as much as you're looking forward to getting out of school and moving on. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, most of those guys have been to the end of season tournament before. They've been in the playoffs. We got a lot of guys that haven't. And so it's kind of like with the UNC game at PNC when we played them in November. It was a new experience to a lot of guys. So you could see in the first period that there was, you know, a little bit of jitter and, you know, a little bit of, you know, taking in everything that was going on around them. And I suspect to some degree that's going to happen again in the playoffs. So that's where we need guys to, you know, settle them down and, you know, reinforce what we need to do and be a positive influence. And honestly, that's all important, but I really want them to go out and enjoy their last hockey weekend as a college player. Or possibly not. If we advance to the regionals, you know, we have that. So I should say it'll be their last ACC competition.
It's an emotional time for sure, Coach, with all these different players. What do you think is going to be going through these players' minds going into it? Just a matter of enthusiasm, excitement, and things like that. What is it going to be like for them in your sort of perspective? What's it going to be like for them following the ACCHL tournament and the regional tournament?
I mean, there's a little bit of ebb and flow that go with it in the sense that, you know, we made it to the playoffs. We want to win. We want to keep winning. And as the games go on, you know, it's one game at a time. And as the games go on and you're getting to the finals and stuff like that, all that excitement and everything you worked on builds up, but then towards the end of the game, it's kind of like the realization that, hey, this is the last ACC tournament, this is the last ACC game, this is the last time I'll be in this rink. That's the last time everybody's going to be in that rink because that rink has been sold and they're tearing it down. So, you know, we've played UVA there a number of times. We've played JMU there in the past. We've played tournaments there. So, I think, I guess a little nostalgia is a reasonable thing to say, is going to kind of set in for a bunch of people. So, emotion, but you have to be able to control it, and I think those guys have no problem doing that.
Now, another player playing one of his final games of this season is, of course, the team president, Chris Wing, and he's done so much for this team over the past several years. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to be his last game. He may have different plans to go into grad school and things like that, but from your experience, Coach, what is it like to have somebody as important as Chris Wing, a cornerstone defenseman for your team, and just an unbelievable person all around?
I think back to the guys that have kind of had that role of president, and they've all been such quality guys, and you always wonder when you get rid of one, what you're going to get in the next guy, because you kind of know him as a player and whatnot, but you don't really know how much they're going to be able to really fill that role, right? And so Chris, he came in and he's done an incredible job. He's pretty much on top of everything. If I need something done, it's done. There are times where I've asked him about things and they're already done, which kind of makes my life easier. So yeah, and maybe grad school's in his future, but he's a sharp guy, and he got himself a nice job already, and so he'll be heading, I think, up to Boston after the college career is over. So, it's great to see these guys. They come into school and they come on the team and they become leaders, and then they leave school and they got great jobs and great futures. And that's wish you could have that for everybody, right?
Exactly. Now, Chris Wing, of course, just has to be the tip of the iceberg for the amount of success that you've seen in your seniors and essentially almost everyone that's played on your team. So, Coach, how does it feel to go through another year of seniors leaving the team for you personally? What are your emotions going through behind this, knowing that this is the final stretch of games for your season this season and for your seniors?
Honestly, every year it's kind of the same. Obviously the first couple of years, I didn't know the guys as well, and then you get to a point where you have the guys as freshmen, and then you've known them for 3, 4, 5 years in some cases, and you see the growth and the maturity in them, and the successes and things like that. So I personally, I hate to see them go, but it's part of life, and this is what they need to do, and they need to move on, and we're always there for them, and that's why we have the alumni game. Mm-hmm. So we get these guys to come back, and maybe you can't come back every year, but the guys get in touch with one another, and it's still a little bit of a family, and that's really important.
It's an emotional time for sure, Coach, but one thing I do want to touch on, though, is the importance of the team president. Chris Wing has done a lot for this team, because the thing about club hockey in general is that it's up to the players to actually come together and to try to make up their own schedule, buy out ice time and everything like that. So talking a little bit more about the job of the president, how is that going to transition into next year if Chris Wing does lead the team?
So we have somebody in mind that we've been talking to, and I'll meet with them tonight, and I'm sure by the next show that we do, we'll be able to discuss who it is. I'm pretty excited about the guy. I know he's interested, and I think kind of some final talk will be tonight. It's not necessarily an interview. It's just, hey, I just want to know what you're in for, and what I expect out of you, and what I'll do for you, and where you're going to get your help and how we're going to go about all this. But the guy's got a great head on his shoulders, and I think it's going to be good. The Wake Forest coach, Dave Pasquale, kind of said to me one day, he goes, for some of these guys, doing this is like running a small business, because you get a budget and you've got to pay bills, and you've got to have those bills paid on time, and you've got a lot of entities that you're dealing with, aside from the fact that you're dealing with your school and your personal life and your family life and everything. So, it takes a special person to be able to do all that. So, Chris has done a good job, and what he's going to do is he's going to get the new guy acclimated to what the job has to be, and I think he's going to do a great job of kind of mentoring him along those lines, sitting down with him, going over things. And I know he'll always be there, so if the guy has questions, and he can contact Chris, and he'll always be there to help answer his questions.
So the team president, along with captains in general, have a lot to do with leadership on and off the ice, and especially in the locker rooms as well, but particularly in practice. Practice, from what I hear anyways, a little bit player-driven, especially in your team, because there's a lot of great independent leaders that can help carry the guys. So, Coach, talk to us about how practice looks for your team and how it sort of affects your play and wherever you guys go.
Usually what happens, along this part of the season now, we're not really doing anything new. I mean, that's all stuff that we did first semester. So we're just coming back. The guys pretty much all know the drills. There may be a little nuances to them. But basically the way I structure it is we'll play our games and we kind of note the deficiencies or what went well and what didn't go well. And then we'll kind of structure practice around it. So if we had a little bit of a difficulty with, say, our power play, we'll focus more on it. If we had a little bit of difficulty with, defensive zone coverage, we'll focus more on it. And the goal is, it's like the classroom. The lesson is practice and the game is the test, right? Mm-hmm. So we focus on the things during the week, incorporate some drills that'll kind of build some good muscle memory or some good habits, and then we see how they do on the weekend.
So due to ice time, of course, practice is very late at night a lot of the time. So how long do you like to keep your practices just to make sure your team is fresh for the next day of classes, or in some cases if they have a Friday game?
Well, if we have a game on Friday, usually Thursday's a little bit lighter in terms of what we're doing. Tuesday's usually a little bit more of I don't want to use strenuous, but a little more involved practice. We have an hour twice a week, and I use the full hour. But sometimes towards the end, we'll throw some small games in, little competitions and stuff like that, and kind of break it up like that.
Sounds good, Coach. Now, the big thing is in the road ahead, you guys have 2 divisional games left. First one is against UNC Chapel Hill, of course. I was thinking UNCW for some reason. I'm thinking that game far ahead because that's one of the last 2 home games that you guys have. But your second divisional game is against Duke. You have 2 really good teams that are coming in to try to lower your seed in the ACCHL tournament. So, Coach, what is the message to the team? What is going to be the driving motivation behind these final 2 divisional games?
Well, we got UNC at the PNC on Monday night, right? And I should not have to have any motivational conversation for that. They're up for it. They know that first place is at stake. We need to beat one of the 2 teams. So if you want first place in the division, it's yours. You have to go and get it. And I think they're more than ready to go and do that. And then we have UNCW, which is always a close game, and the following weekend after that we have West Virginia coming in, so we actually have 4 more games at home. So I mean, the guys are just looking to play. We just keep rolling along. Right after that we get into the tournament, and I think the guys are in a good mindset for it.
So, Coach, what is the importance of Monday's game against UNC Chapel Hill, the final backyard brawl of this season? How important is it for the team just going forward about, again, spreading the message about collegiate hockey in North Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, as far as getting in touch with the youth hockey programs and getting the kids out there, and you look around when there's breaks in the action, and you see the kids in their jerseys, all youth hockey jerseys and stuff, and I mean, it's definitely drawn attention to what goes on. Even not with us, but just other schools that have hockey programs. So I think that's big as far as that goes, and as far as what's at stake? Well, bragging rights, right? So, we want to win it for that reason, and we want to put on a good show for everybody, and we want to play for one another, and that's kind of what we talk about too. This is the last game for the seniors, so, every one of them was a freshman at one point or an underclassman at one point, and what they always heard from me was play for your seniors, right? And so now what I'm going to be telling the other guys is play for your seniors. Play hard. They're going to play hard. We want to play hard for them. And I think it's just going to be a good time. I think the guys are going to have a great time with it, and I think they're up for the challenge, and we're ready to go.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break here at Most Cameron Village in Raleigh. Zach Solai alongside head coach Mike Gazzillo here. We'll be right back to recap the past 3 games that have happened this semester right here on PackTV.
Welcome to
We build it, you demolish it. The legendary Homewrecker Burrito. Come build yours today with 20+ fresh ingredients.
First online order, 10% off. Promo code ONLINE.
Hi, I'm Ben Sizemore with UNC Ice Hockey.
Hi, I'm Sam Banishevs for the NC State Ice Hockey. Come join us Monday night, January 29th at 7 o'clock puck drop to watch NC State beat UNC.
No, I think UNC is going to win.
I don't know. What if we tie?
I think the tie goes to the school with a better basketball team.
I think the tie should just go to the basketball team that actually goes to class.
Thank you for joining us here again on PackTV for this episode of Over the Boards. Here with Coach Mike Gazzillo, I'm Zach Selwaye. This is sponsored by Most Cameron Village in Raleigh at 919-999-3999 or 919.catering.mos.com. As always, Coach, a lot of nines. So talking about going on earlier in this semester, we had the big Delaware game. This is part of their Delaware's Carolina Road Swing, in which they did go 2-1, dominating UNC by an amazing score, but I was thinking of UNC Charlotte, where they absolutely clobbered them 9-4. But against your team, they did lose 5-3. But not to mention, in the very beginning, there was a very rough start from your team. Now, flat starts for the Ice Pack have been consistent. In that first period, it was 1-0. So, Coach, talking about flat starts, what are you doing in practice to improve those?
You know, it's not like you have a drill for starting flat, right? It's just a mindset, you know, that guys have to get through, and you know, it's something that we talked about. They realize it, you know, they understand. If I go in between periods and I say, hey, you know, what do you guys think about what just went on? They'll tell me, yeah, we're a little slow, we're a little slow paced. All right, so then if you know it, let's do something about it, right? So, like I said, there's really no drill you can do for that. It's just, you know, we work on maybe the compete drills a little bit more to get them a little bit more motivated. But yeah, I mean, I would like it if we didn't start as slow coming out of the gate and, you know, having really good third periods and stuff. But, you know, it is what it is, and, you know, I'm not going to beat them over the head for it. I just want to get them to work a little bit harder, a little more consistently.
Now, Stephen Bryson terrorized your team on that night, and it was very hard to control him. He's one of Delaware's leading scorers, but it was none other than Joey Hall who stood up and actually defended the net so well, stopping 42 of 45 shots. Coach, how did the team feel about his performance that night, and more importantly, how did you feel that night?
Yeah, man, honestly, I thought they pretty much played a good, complete game. You know, it got better as it got on. Joey played an outstanding game. The guys played well in front of him, which is really a good key component. We got some shooting. You know, if you shoot enough, you're going to score, and you know, we took care of that. And, you know, other than that, I think the guys worked hard, and I think they saw that you know, they could hang with I don't want to say the big boys, but let's face it, Delaware is always a ranked team, and you know, we've beaten ranked teams in the past, and they pretty much proved that, you know, on any given night, you know, we're as good as anybody else if we play hard.
Yeah, me and Ethan up in the booth were talking about how this was Joey Hall's best game of the season by far, and even that he has seen it. He's been with the program much longer than I have, so Joey had an outstanding game, and there was a lot of players who did good that game. The top line, of course, has had a little bit trouble scoring lately. Luis Jimenez has mainly taken the charge in that, been of the good veteran leader that the team needs. But talking about the depth that is rising up, definitely in between Tyler Alfonzetti and Hayden Dewey, Coach, what do you think about their game? Because it's been absolutely outstanding from what we've seen up at the broadcast booth.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing well, and they're, you know, somewhat cementing their case for, you know, my team for the future. You know, they're playing well. They're talking a lot. They're working hard in practice. You know, first guys on the ice, last to leave kind of thing. So, you know, it's good for me to see. You know, I think it kind of generates some of the other guys to play well. And, yeah, so definitely excited. Tyler's going to graduate, you know, next year's his senior year. Hayden, freshman year, so that's good, you know, to see that much enthusiasm in a freshman, you know. So, you know, we look for big things coming out of them.
So along with Luis Jimenez really taking the charge on that first line for scoring-wise, he's been a veteran leader on the ice. As you saw in the Clemson game, he was the only true veteran on the ice. One of the three top fours that you had, you were missing 4 out of your 7 forwards that night for your top forward. So Luis, his leadership on the ice, can you just attest to that and how well he's been able to lead the team with his veteran experience?
Yeah, so I assume you're talking about the Charlotte and Clemson weekend?
Charlotte and Clemson, and just in general about how he's just been such a presence for your team.
Yeah, we were missing, you know, and so there you go. So we had some guys out due to injury and illness, and, you know, when you have that and you need your true leaders to step up, and they do, and they work hard and they play hard, and they, encourage the guys on the bench and in the locker room and stuff to, pick up their game. And, they're pretty even-keeled. There's no yelling, screaming, or any of that stuff. It's just, and a lot of it too is you don't have to always say anything. You can lead by example.
Right.
And guys pick up on it, and that's what guys like him are able to do well, and that just kind of resonates with everybody else.
Now the flu bug was apparent in the Charlotte game, so where the team did lose 4-3, a lot of players were feeling a little bit under the weather. It was a little bit cold. So talk about how difficult that game was for your team to keep up sort of energy-wise following that sickness that was going through the team and things like that.
It's one of those things where there's nothing anybody can really do about anything about, right? So the guys that were up for the task, that you got to kind of take a little bit more on your shoulders and go out and maybe work a little harder or try to generate a little scoring opportunity here and there. And I think they did that. Honestly, I think both teams were a little flat, especially the second period was a little tough to watch. Mm-hmm. Pucks were bouncing all over the place. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times I saw what should have been a good pass was just bouncing all over. But hey, Clemson had to play on that ice too, and they had those issues as well. So, we were down, but we came back. We came back pretty strong, and hey. Realistically, we tied the game up at the end, but they seem to feel that our player left the bench just a little too early and whistled it down, and they're not going to take it back. And right. I think it's an unfortunate situation, but again, it speaks to the team where just going down to the final seconds, they're still working to try and compete and win.
So bad ice was a factor as always, Coach. But more importantly, I want to talk about your team's comeback efforts against Charlotte. It was 4-0 after 2 periods. Going into the third, you had 3 incredible goals that really led the comeback, and it didn't finish off. So just talk about that comeback for us. What was said in that second intermission to try to gain that momentum back to where your team dominated the third period and had arguably one of its best periods of the season?
I said, look, we've been down to other teams before, and we've been down to better teams before. So all I asked them to do is break the third period down into 4 5-minute periods. Let's go out and win each period. And we scored in the first 5 minutes of the period. We scored with just under 10 minutes, so we just outside of that 5-minute mark, and then we scored another one. And, we got a lot of pucks to the net, and, their goalie played well. And, I think if we had a little more time, I'm pretty confident we would have nailed that fourth one and probably even won. But we ran out of time, and I think Charlotte played a good game. You can't discredit them at all. They came out and they played hard, and it mattered to them where they wound up in the standings for the tournament. So, I expect if we see them in the tournament, it's going to be a good game.
So Ethan and I were up on the broadcast. We were talking for WKNC Radio that night. In the second period, there was a situation of events where a player was on the breakaway and crashed into Joey Hall, and the puck still went in and counted. So we're not very sure of the ACHA rules, and we're not sure what happened down there. Do you remember that goal at all, Coach?
Yeah, but unfortunately it was at the other end, and so I really didn't see it. And
okay.
There were too many people around, so, at sometimes like that, you got to really rely on the guys to tell you what exactly happened out there, I guess when the whistle gets blown or whatever is at the discretion of the referee, and, I guess if they didn't feel it was worth it, that's the only way the play is going to stop, right? So you played at a whistle, and in this situation, the puck went in, and we got to move on.
Yeah, that play baffled a lot of us up in the broadcast booth, and I'm sure the listeners, WKNC Radio. So over time, we're going to make sure to learn more about ACHE rules going forward, because it's a very interesting issue to talk about, of course, but the refs have such a hard time doing their job. They arguably have one of the hardest jobs on the ice every night, but sometimes they make good calls and they make bad calls. But more importantly, Coach, if bad calls don't get overturned very often. So what's the motivational message to your team when they know there could be a game-deciding call that is made? How does your team is able to pick up and continue to just go for it and play their game the best that they can?
Bad calls never get overturned. It's not like we can go to the videotape or go to New York and have somebody look it over and make a change. It's not going to happen. When a referee blows his whistle and ends a play or calls a penalty or whatever, no amount of complaining or anything else is going to change that. What I tell the guys, you can't have two enemies out there. So, you do what you can to play against the other team, and you're not going to control what the refs do. You're not going to change what they do, and you can't be affected by it. You can't let it get in your head. Just go out and play your game, and do the things that we talk about doing, and we'll kind of deal with it from there.
Now, talking about that Clemson game now, after you carried that momentum from the Charlotte third period into that game, which you talked about with us on WKNC Radio, you came into Clemson without 4 of your top 7 forwards. So there was a lot of line jumbling going on, and we saw promotions to the first line in players like Trevor Merchant and Tyler Alfonsetti. Sort of talk about why you decided to put them on the first line. How hard have they worked all season for you personally to give them that promotion?
Well, to be honest with you, I wanted to keep some stuff intact, and that kind of meant keeping Andrew Kristoff and Lensmeyer and Hayden together. And with just the way it bounced out, I was able to just kind of move Tyler and Trevor up with Luis, and that worked out well. They played well. I mean, they're all good players. They all get along. They all know the game well. They've all got speed. They've all got hands. So it seemed like a pretty easy choice to me.
So there was a situation of events again that happened in that third period. Explain the extra attacker rule to all of us, because it seems like when Andrew Kristoff scored the goal that was waved off, Josh Cannon was on his way to the bench. One, he was pulled when the team was down 3-2. So talk to us about the extra attacker rules, because typically it's when the goaltender starts to leave towards the bench, and that's when the extra attacker is allowed to come on. But in ACHA rules, the goaltender is apparently supposed to touch the bench before the player comes on. Could you clarify that in any sort of way?
I mean, it's actually not that once you leave the crease, the other guy can jump in. He's got to get. I'm trying to think. How sometimes if you're watching a baseball game and they do a double play and the guy throws and the second baseman, the shortstop doesn't really tag the bag, but it's just like, it's just like an accepted kind of, if that throw beats the runner, when he makes it on, he's called out, right? So. This is a situation where, I think the rule is, somewhere around 10 feet, They felt he was a little too far away from that. I mean, realistically, I saw the puck go in. I heard the whistle. I saw the puck go in. And Hayden, I don't even think he had gotten to the red line. So in no way did he getting on affect the play at all. But, the referee had whatever perspective he had and how far away Josh was, and according to Jeff, he was watching it, and as soon as Hayden jumped on, he didn't feel he was close enough to the bench, and he blew it down.
Now, the insight from you, of course, is always so critical, so we thank you for that, Coach. And now it's time to move on to one of the new parts of Over the Boards here. We're going to review some Twitter questions asked by you, the fans of NC State hockey. So we're going to go to our first question here when it pops up. So this comes from Trisha Ellen. Do you think that the team plays to the level of the competition where you guys beat Delaware but lost to Clemson?
At times, I think that could be a pretty accurate statement. I don't necessarily know that we discounted Clemson as not being a good team, but sometimes when you're up against a team like Delaware that is ranked, that is pretty much a heavyweight in the Division II league, you're up for that game a little bit more. And sometimes if you're playing somebody and that's not really the case, maybe you let your guard down a little bit. So, I think there's some validity to that statement. Not that I like it by any means, and we kind of tell them, bring teams to your level. Don't sink down to, another level. And again, not that I'm trying to insult them by saying sink down, but, we feel that if we're firing on all cylinders, we're a very difficult team to beat.
I think we have time for one more Twitter question here concerning the backyard brawl, if we can pull that up here. There's always some technical difficulties. Here we go. So I have gone to 2 backyard brawls. What will it take to fill the entire PNC Arena one day?
I don't know. That's a pretty good question. It's for a college game when not a lot of people really know about hockey in the area and stuff. It's 4,000 to 6,000 people is pretty good. Would we like to see more? Yeah, but I think as it grows, having the governor there this year and kind of putting that governor's cup into it, maybe adds a little bit to it. A lot of people kind of commented it was the week of Thanksgiving, and maybe that held some people back. And I don't know that there is a perfect time, but we'll certainly look to not have conflicts where we can. And I think as the word gets out and more people enjoy the games and the games stay close and competitive and stuff like that, I think we'll start drawing more people to it.
So, Coach, thank you once again for joining us here and Over the Boards. For Mike Gazzillo, I am Zach Salawaye. We thank you for joining us here, and to learn more about what's going to go on at the PNC Arena on Monday night, you can visit ntsuhockey.org, or you can go on Twitter and follow at IcePackGameDay for all information you need about the match. You can follow me as well at the official ZMP, and we'll be talking more about everything you need to know concerning the game and also future PackTV broadcasts. We thank you for joining us tonight here in Moe's Cameron Village in Raleigh, and we hope you have a great night.
We build it, you demolish it. The legendary Homewrecker Burrito. Come build yours today with 20+ fresh ingredients.
First online order, 10% off. Promo code ONLINE.